Ronnie O'Sullivan is a name that has become synonymous with snooker. Known as the Rocket for his lightning-fast play and extraordinary talent, O'Sullivan has been a dominant force in the sport for decades. But recently, something has changed. The man who once seemed unbeatable, who could take on any opponent and come out on top, has started to show signs of vulnerability. Fans and experts alike are asking the same question: what happened to Ronnie O'Sullivan? To understand where things stand today, we need to look back at the height of O'Sullivan's career. He has won 7 world championships, holds the record for the most career ranking titles, and has achieved over 1,000 century breaks, the highest in snooker history. For years, it seemed like there was no stopping him. His dominance was so complete that when he walked into a tournament, it wasn't a matter of if he could win, but rather by how much. But the story of O'Sullivan's recent struggles begins in Shanghai. O'Sullivan had been a regular at the Shanghai Masters, a tournament where he was virtually unbeatable. From 2016 to 2023, he won every single time he competed there. His streak of 21 consecutive wins at this event was legendary. To put that into perspective, when O'Sullivan last lost in Shanghai, Sam Allardyce was still managing the England football team, and Theresa May had just become the UK's Prime Minister. Since then, 5 different people have held that office. The world had changed, but O'Sullivan's dominance in Shanghai had not, until recently. In July 2024, O'Sullivan faced off against Judd Trump in the semi-finals of the Shanghai Masters. Trump is a player who has given O'Sullivan a run for his money before, but O'Sullivan always managed to come out on top. Until this time. From the very beginning of the match, something seemed off. O'Sullivan wasn't his usual self. He struggled to find his rhythm, missed shots that he would normally sink without a second thought, and ultimately lost the match 10-3. For a player of O'Sullivan's caliber, that kind of defeat was unheard of. The loss in Shanghai was more than just a defeat. It was a signal that something was different. Fans were shocked, and the snooker world was buzzing with speculation. How could a player who had been so dominant for so long suddenly fall so far?
As did that. Business. Really tangible advantage at the end of this session. Oh goodness, just after finally getting a bit of traction with that.
A pretty easy red to the left pocket as well.
It's going to be an incredible day of snooker.
Ronnie O'Sullivan's 21-match unbeaten run in Shanghai has come to an end.
But the Shanghai Masters wasn't the only sign that O'Sullivan's game was slipping. Just a month before, he had been knocked out of the Championship League snooker tournament, the first ranking event of the 2024-2025 season. Going into the tournament, O'Sullivan was the clear favourite. His experience, skill and reputation made him the man to beat. But instead of cruising to victory, he was eliminated in the group stages, a result that no one saw coming. O'Sullivan's group in the Championship League was made up of 2 low-ranked players and an amateur. It seemed like a relatively easy path to the knockout rounds, but things didn't go as planned. He started strong, with a 3-0 victory over the amateur Caden Brearley.
4.5 hours, so he's got a lot of wait to fill his time somehow. Caden Brearley will look back at a few chances he had. I can say Jack Lazowski's 2-0 up, he's just stolen the second frame. So he's looking good as well. Battling to get that pink back on its spot. So he had 2 breaks of 53 and a 72, and Ronnie O'Sullivan has breezed through his first match in around about half an hour.
His next match was against Mitchell Mann, a player ranked far below O'Sullivan. But instead of securing a win, O'Sullivan could only manage a 2-2 draw.
He's no danger in putting the blue over the pocket and leaving Ronnie a chance off the pink, because Ronnie would still need another snooker after that, so Oh, he's still trying being the black.
But not now. The blue's in, and here comes the handshake, or the fist bump anyway. So, fascinating and very eventful final frame has gone finally to Mitchell Mann.
This meant that in his final group match, he needed a win to advance. His opponent was He Guo-chang, a young Chinese player ranked 66th in the world. On paper, it should have been a straightforward match for O'Sullivan, but once again, things didn't go as expected. He Guo-chang played the match of his life, and O'Sullivan, perhaps rattled by his earlier struggles, couldn't find his form. He lost the match 3-0 and was knocked out of the tournament.
He has played good stuff to beat Ronnie O'Sullivan, also 3-0, to earn a return.
World champion Kyron Wilson to number 3.
You know, they're short matches. If you don't perform, you'll get found out. Has stood tall. Ronnie O'Sullivan's going to come forward and congratulate him. And it's He Guo-chang who puts himself into stage 2.
For a player of O'Sullivan's stature, losing in the group stages of a tournament is a rare occurrence. But losing to a player ranked outside the top 50, well, that's almost unthinkable. And yet, it happened. These back-to-back losses in Shanghai and the Championship League have left fans wondering what's going on with Ronnie. Before we move on, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. There are a few possible explanations for O'Sullivan's recent struggles. First, there's the simple fact of age. O'Sullivan is 48 years old, and while that's not ancient by snooker standards, it's certainly getting up there. Snooker is a game that requires not just physical precision, but also intense mental focus. As players get older, maintaining that focus becomes more difficult. Reflexes slow down, concentration wanes, and even the best players can start to make mistakes that they wouldn't have made in their prime. But age alone doesn't explain O'Sullivan's sudden drop in form. After all, he's been winning well into his 40s, and many players have remained competitive into their 50s. Another factor to consider is motivation. O'Sullivan has always been an enigmatic figure in the world of snooker. While his talent is undeniable, his relationship with the game has been complicated. He's spoken openly about the pressures of being at the top and how they've affected his mental health. He's taken breaks from the sport before, citing the need to step away and recharge. Could it be that after all these years, O'Sullivan is simply losing his passion for the game? In recent interviews, O'Sullivan has hinted at this possibility. After his exit from the World Championships earlier in 2024, he spoke about how he's starting to view snooker differently. He mentioned that there are now 3 things more important to him than the game: his health, his family, and his happiness. It's a sentiment that many can relate to, but it's also a clear sign that snooker is no longer the all-consuming focus of his life.
I think that's the minimum I can do, is have a break, you know, and just see if I get some enthusiasm back for the game. But I've been like it for a long time. But yeah, breaks have helped me sort of. But I don't miss playing. But I miss something, you know. Having a purpose in life, you know. That's what I learned in 2012, 2013 when I took that year out. I'm not sure snooker is my purpose anymore, to be honest with you. I'm not sure it ever was, you know, with the battles that I've had with it. But I just stuck at it, you know, because of, you know, you got family support, you got, you know, my dad was where he was, my mum, you know, and you just feel like, you know.
O'Sullivan has also spoken about how he's becoming more selective with the tournaments he enters. He's made it clear that he's not interested in playing every event just for the sake of it. Instead, he's choosing his battles carefully, focusing on the ones that really matter to him. This approach is understandable.
You know, like a lot of matches, I've just had to throw the kitchen sink at a session, like against Williams in that final. I thought, I've got one session to throw the kitchen sink at it, and I did that and got 5-3, but you can't keep throwing the kitchen sink at it. Whereas that game, I was just playing the second, third gear most of the match, you know, and I choose when to try and throw the kitchen sink at it. I don't just go out there and throw it at it. You know, I have to pick my battles. But you know, hopefully if I get my game right, I can cruise a bit more and be more lethal when I need to be, you know.
Especially given his age and the toll that years of high-level competition can take on a person's body and mind. But it also means that when he does compete, the expectations are even higher. Fans expect to see the Ronnie O'Sullivan of old, the player who could dismantle any opponent with ease. When that doesn't happen, the disappointment is all the greater. So what does the future hold for Ronnie O'Sullivan? It's hard to say. On one hand, he's still one of the most talented and experienced players in the game. His record speaks for itself, and it would be foolish to write him off after a couple of bad results. On the other hand, there's no denying that something has changed, whether it's age, motivation, or just a temporary loss of form. The fact is that O'Sullivan is no longer the unstoppable force he once was. But here's the thing about Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's always been full of surprises. Just when you think you've figured him out, he does something completely unexpected. Maybe this is just the calm before the storm. Maybe O'Sullivan is taking a step back, reassessing his priorities, and preparing for one final push. Or maybe he's slowly winding down, content to let his career come to a natural end on his own terms. Whatever happens, one thing is certain. Ronnie O'Sullivan has already cemented his place as one of the greatest snooker players of all time. His legacy is secure, and even if he never wins another match, he'll still be remembered as a legend of the game. But knowing O'Sullivan, it's unlikely that he'll go quietly into the night. There's still fire in the rocket, and whether it's in his next match or the one after that, you can bet that he'll have something spectacular up his sleeve. So, what happened to Ronnie O'Sullivan? The answer is still unfolding. What we're seeing might just be a bump in the road for a player who's been at the top for so long. Or it could be the beginning of a new chapter in his storied career, one where he competes on his own terms, without the need to prove anything to anyone. Whatever the case, one thing's for sure. The snooker world will be watching closely to see what the Rocket does next. Because if there's one thing we've learned over the years, it's that with Ronnie O'Sullivan, you never quite know what's going to happen. But it's always worth watching. And that's it for this video. What do you think is next for the Rocket? Let us know in the comments. For more snooker content, click on the screen right now.